Ready for this? From the Jerusalem Post. Of course, none of this is being reported by our media on television this evening. Russia is building advanced, long-range air defenses in its new air base on the Syrian coast. Got that? Long-range air defenses, which could disrupt the military activities of the United States and its allies in the sector, NATO's top commander, General Philip Breedlove, warned on Monday, according to a report that appeared in the Breaking Defense website. Breedlove is commander of U.S. European Command and the 17th Supreme Allied Command Europe of NATO. He spoke of a new Russian bubble of anti-access, anti-area denial in the eastern Mediterranean. This can be used to try and keep Western militaries out of the airspace over and near Syria. You notice the communist Chinese have done the same thing with the South China Sea? From where NATO's top commander, General Philip Breedlove, sits, the Russian forces flowing into Syria don't look like counter-terrorists out to stop the Islamic State, which Vladimir Putin has said is his highest priority. This is exactly what I said yesterday. They look like the first pieces of a layered anti-access area denial system that could complicate U.S. and allied operations in Syria and well beyond. Russia is there not to fight ISIS, although it's perfectly happy to kick their ass. Russia is there because it is expanding its military influence. It's expanding its economic influence. Russia is on the move in the area of the world that produces more oil than any other area of the world. And they want the oil, and they want the money, because it's a dead economy. I mean, they're building these advanced air bases. The guy talks here, the general, about their bubble that they're building here, about the types of jets they're going to be using, and so forth and so on. This isn't for ISIS. I mean, they're perfectly happy to use them against ISIS. It's more than that. 2 other Russian bubbles already exist. In Kaliningrad, between Poland and Lithuania, where Russian missiles can reach well into Polish airspace and shut down NATO reinforcements, and in the Black Sea, where Russia's occupation of Crimea has resulted in the creation of a very strong A2AD capability, Breedlove said. So you have these apologists for Russia. Hey, look, 1,200 years ago, this was part of, this has always been part of Russia. Crimea, Ukraine, Georgia. Who are we to tell them no? They're being extremely strategic, so they can reach now into the Polish airspace and shut down NATO reinforcements. NATO is being neutralized. That's what's going on here. To preempt such dangers, the IDF and Russian military have recently set up a joint working group to coordinate their activities in aerial, naval, and other arenas around Syria. Without directly referring to the Breaking Defense report, a second source told the Jerusalem Post that the new working group should enable the 2 militaries to coordinate on everything that is Syrian-related, thereby avoiding inadvertent clashes. Now, don't get that wrong. They're trying to avoid inadvertent clashes. But Syria's interests, Hezbollah's interests, Hamas's interests, Iran's interests, and Russia's interests are not Israel's interests. Without directly referring to the Breaking Defense report, a second source told the Jerusalem Post of this working group. Last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and IDF Chief Staff Lieutenant General Gadi Eisenkot returned from a one-day visit to Moscow, where they held intensive meetings with their Russian counterparts on Russia's newly expanded military role in Syria. Where's the United States? Hey, we're busy cutting deals with Cuba. We're busy nationalizing our domestic police forces. We're busy nationalizing zoning in the country. What do you want? We're shutting down our industries and, of course, eviscerating our Constitution. Then there's this final shoe to drop at the Washington Free Beacon. The mechanism worked out last week in Moscow between Israeli and Russian heads of state for avoiding clashes with each other in Syria underwent its first strain today when President Vladimir Putin said he was worried about an Israeli artillery strike at Syrian army positions opposite the Golan Heights over the weekend. Putin attempted to balance his statement at a press conference in New York by saying that Russia must respect Israeli interests. Nevertheless, his expression of concern at the Israeli strike appeared to hint that Moscow will be closely monitoring Israeli activities in Syria and will at least speak out when it deems that the interests of its Syrian ally, President Bashar Assad, are challenged. Now, what happened? Israel retaliated Saturday night for 2 mortar shells fired in the Golan from territory controlled by the Syrian army opposite the Golan Heights. Israeli army officers said the shells, which apparently caused no casualties or damage, were likely errant rounds fired during an exchange between the Syrian army and rebel forces close to the Golan border. Defense Minister Moshe Yaalon said the shelling crossed a red line. We see the Syrian regime and its military as responsible for what occurs in their territory. The Israeli counterfire hit 2 artillery positions. But now Russia's there, and Russia's supporting Hezbollah, and Russia's supporting Hamas, and Russia's supporting Iran, and vice versa. This is a prelude to a world war. I've talked about this before. It started in earnest, with this deal with the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran with nuclear warheads, and you can see how completely we were taken to the cleaners here. Russia and China were pushing for this deal too. They supported this deal. The deal is cut. Russia immediately moves into Syria, immediately making deals with Iran, big deals. China, as we talked about yesterday, it's been reported since June, July of the summer, China is now poised to make heavy, heavy investments in oil and natural gas to beef up the Iranian industries and to take as much out of there as they can as well, because China has an insatiable appetite for oil and natural gas. This is what's going on. It's not Putin and the communist regime as human rights, humanitarian types. This is realpolitics. And Barack Obama's way out of his league. Way out of his league. And we suffer as a result. And the young people in this country are going to severely suffer. How do we even get back what we had before Obama was president? You're not going to do it with Mitch McConnell. You're not going to do it with Kevin McCarthy. These lackards. These intellectually lazy Republicans in the United States House and Senate. They're not up to the task. They've already demonstrated that.